On Tuesday, EA Sports dropped the deep dive into Dynasty Mode, which also includes the coaching carousel. It includes recruiting. This is when you decide what your team is going to be and you decide how you're going to run it. So online Dynasty, the way they've got it set up, you can have up to 32 teams for up to 30 seasons. So we can go into the 2050s here. You can have a robust coaching career. You can start at the bottom of the FBS and work your way up all the way to national title contender. You can start with a national title contender. It really depends on what flavor you want. But it was interesting seeing some of this stuff in action. They talked to us about it a lot and showed us screenshots when I was down at EA Sports in May. But a lot of it, I kind of need to see it in motion to truly understand what they were talking about. But the key changes here, I think that people who played the old game are going to have to sink their teeth into. It's the same that the real coaches have to deal with. Like, we'll talk to Jeff Traylor about this, but it's dealing with the transfer portal. It's deciding how you want to recruit. Do you want to recruit more out of the transfer portal or more from high school? Do you want to recruit, blue chippers in the portal? Do you want to get your ready-made players out of the portal? How do you want to do it? How do you convince your current players to stay? How aggressive are you at convincing your current players to stay? All of that stuff is going to be in this game. Like, for instance, when you are coaching, you can check during the season. You can check every few weeks if you want. Check your own team and say, okay, who's at risk for transferring? I got the screenshot up right now, and you're the Cincinnati coach in this screenshot, and it's got a list of players who, for these reasons, may want to transfer, and you have to decide: are you going to try to convince them to stay, or are you going to just let them go? That's going to be very important. So the roster management piece is going to be very similar to your actual roster management in real life. Like, how important is it to keep this player over this player? How important is it to keep this player over this player? And then, of course, you go into the actual recruiting. They still have the high school recruiting. It's going to generate 3,500 high school recruits per year. And there's 14 different pitches that you can use to sign those players. And every player has different stuff that's important to him. The brand exposure pitch, this is the one they told us is the most equivalent to NIL. Because remember, the guys who made the game said they weren't exactly sure how to incorporate NIL because they were worried that the rules were changing so quickly, the situations were changing so quickly, and the environment was changing so quickly that they didn't want to make it in the game and then everything changes and it's not that realistic. So they made brand exposure as kind of a catch-all for NIL. So that's NIL if you are trying to recruit. One interesting thing they've got is a deal breaker, which very common in actual recruiting situations. Now, I'll point out, whether you're recruiting out of high school or whether you're recruiting out of the portal, that recruiting process works the same way. It's just you decide who you want to recruit out of the portal and who you want to recruit out of high school. But the deal breaker situation, the example they showed, playing time. So you have a C+ playing time where you got a situation where a guy can come in and he might win a job. This player needs at least a B- playing time situation. And so he's not coming. And you basically, if you don't meet their deal breaker, you can be locked out. And so if you get locked out, you're done recruiting that player. That's it. But while you're still in the mix, you've got to make sure you're in their top 8, in their top 5. This is where our On3 cross branding needs to come in. This is where EA Sports, I'm telling you right now, you need On3 in this game. You need us to do the top 8 and the top 5. Like, you need the game to generate a Hayes Fawcett recruiting edit when the top 5 is selected, when the top 3 is selected, and when the player commits. Like, there needs to be a Hayes Fawcett edit because that's what happens in real life. When a blue chip recruit commits, he gets a Hayes Fawcett edit. When I committed on 3, I got a Hayes Fawcett edit. So come on, EA Sports. We need that. But the recruiting piece of it is very interesting. Like, you bring in your guys for official visits. And like in real life, you want to stack your official visit weekends. So, in real life, we can kind of tell who a school really wants by who they match up player-wise on their official visit weekends. Also the quality of the game that they bring them to during the season. But, a lot of times it's off season. So if you've got your quarterback who's been committed for over a year and he's a big-time recruit, like, you're going to pair him on the official visit with everybody else that you really, truly want. The guys that are the most important for you to get. You do that. You can do that in the game. And I think that's very interesting. Also, custom conferences, up to 20 teams in your custom conference. So if you want to see what, I don't know, the Big Ten would look like if it had Florida State and Clemson in it, or if you just wanted to go back to old conferences, if you said, you know what, the ACC circa 1988 is the conference that I want to play in. That's my ideal conference. You can make that conference. You can make Florida State an independent again. You send Miami. Well, I think Miami would have been an independent then. They hadn't joined the Big East quite yet. But you can do that in the game. Also, of course, in Dynasty Mode, you are charting your own career as a coach. Now, you can start as an OC or a DC. So start as offensive or defensive coordinator, or you can start as a head coach. I think that's pretty fun. Like, you can kind of work your way up through, and you can, move around OC jobs. If you're a head coach, you have to hire and fire coordinators. Like, you have to decide, am I going to fire my coordinator, or did my coordinator just come into my office and say, I'm taking this other job, and now you've got to go find somebody else? All of that stuff is real life stuff. All of that stuff is stuff that coaches have to deal with. So I'm fascinated by this. I cannot wait to try it. A lot of the cooler Dynasty Mode stuff in the old game, I missed out on because, like I said, once my kids were born in 2000, first kid was born in 2009, there was no time to play video games. I stopped playing the game a lot sooner than a lot of you guys did. So I missed a lot of that stuff. So I can't wait to try that, because that's where I feel like I can completely nerd out. Now, my colleague Steve Wiltfong had a very smart tweet on Wednesday. He said, I don't know where all these grown-ups feel like they're going to find all this time to play this game. And I'm just like, Steve, you're probably right. Look, my ULM online dynasty, the grand plans I have for it might be scuttled by real life, might be scuttled by having to take my kids to various different activities, but I'm going to try. The question is whether I'm going to get kicked out of my son's room because he's got to do his homework and I'm on his PlayStation. But we'll find out, because I want to know what kind of coach I'm going to be. Do you want to be a tactician? Do you want to be a motivator? Do you want to be a recruiter? Like, you have to decide that. That's, your main personality component. And it's a great question. Like, what kind of coach? Do you want to be the recruiter type who just stacks talent, the tactician who's incredible at the X and O's, or the motivator who can kind of do a little bit of both, but can also make guys play better than they really are? It's going to be fun to find out. Thank you so much for watching. Just a reminder, subscribe to this channel right here so you never miss an episode of Andy Staples On 3. And oh, by the way, watch all the other great videos on the On3 Sports YouTube channel.